Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Deputy Chairman Planning Commission, who will discuss with us a whole range of issues around the recently concluded 12th plan document and other public policy issues. Welcome to our show, Dr. Ahluwalia. Begin with a framing question as to the big attempt the UPA has embarked on, which is to completely transform the delivery of social welfare programs through cash transfer and a whole lot of other instruments, which in a sense is also key to the 12th plan objective of optimizing delivery of welfare programs. Could you just give us what is the thinking behind this big exercise, because currently it's mired in all kinds of confusions. People are asking questions about whether existing schemes will be replaced with cash transfer, or how will UID dovetail with this. So just wanted some clarity on what exactly is...
Okay. Well, let's make a distinction between certain welfare schemes where we are actually giving subsidized commodities, whether it's food grain or kerosene or LPG, and others where we're actually transferring money. But the mechanism for transfer of money is old-fashioned, okay? That's like Janani Suraksha Yojana, various old age pensions, mainly a lot of scholarship schemes. Yeah. I mean, the scheme consists of an entitlement to get money, but the money is actually disbursed in an extremely old-fashioned way where it can get stuck at many, many different levels. So in the first instance, what we are doing is we're looking at this category where in any case it was a cash transfer, but what we are doing is we're using an Aadhaar-linked electronic transfer mechanism, which will enable the transfer to be done seamlessly without processing it at multiple levels. When you're receiving a check, for example, I mean, somebody has to write a check, somebody has to put a signature on the check can get lost, you have to collect the check. That is a very cumbersome system. And in many parts of the country, even to get your check handed over to you, you may well have to be paying some money. Okay. What we're going to do now is that every district, for example, has a list of beneficiaries under each of these schemes. Yeah. We will digitalize the list so that it becomes available in an electronic record. Okay. For each person, we will have an Aadhaar number. Now that by itself will establish that the same person cannot be getting the benefit under two different names, which otherwise you can't rule out. So Aadhaar will actually achieve...
So you're doing this for existing schemes which are already cash transfer in some sense.
Yeah, but remember...
But you're making it more streamlined.
Yes, these are schemes which are supposed to give cash, but what's going to happen is that you'll avoid duplication, and secondly, you'll be doing it instantly rather than through this check processing method.
So already what is cash transfer being made much more efficient through these instruments? Efficient
and transparent, and it's not just that. Linked to this mechanism, the banks are setting up what they call banking correspondence. Okay? Now, banking correspondence will have what they call a mobile mini ATM, a little machine in which will recognize your thumb impression. And what this will do is that in order to collect money or deposit money, you don't have to go to your bank branch. So a lot of people are saying, what's the use of this scheme? Because there are only so many branches, and there are many more villages.
will go to villages, right?
The individual, let's say in a village, there's no bank branch, okay? But for example, the customer service center, a self-help group, maybe even the village shopkeeper could become a banking correspondent. That means that if he becomes a banking correspondent, he has a little machine which the bank gives to him, and that machine enables you, if you have an Aadhaar-linked account, you give your Aadhaar number and you give your bank, whatever the bank is. Through the Aadhaar ID, it will immediately tell you how much there is in your account. Okay? You can then instruct the banking correspondent to transfer a certain amount from your account to his account
and how
get
many
cash.
Banking correspondents are you? I believe 500,000 is being projected by RBI over the
I think in the end
over the next 1 year, 2 years?
I don't have the exact number, but I'll tell you what is appropriate is what they're saying is for each 1,000 to 1,500 households, they want to be able to have one banking correspondent.
That translates to how many, roughly?
Goodness, you work it out. But it's a large number of banking correspondents.
It's more than 500,000, I'm told. Yeah.
It would be 5 lakhs, yeah. I think the key issue here is that you don't have to have a bank near where you are. What you do
so
need...
the bank goes to the village. That's what you're saying,
yes,
right?
in the form of a banking correspondent. He doesn't necessarily go to the village. He is in the village because it makes sense for him. He gets a commission out of the whole.
It will be done through a village shop, grocery.
Yes, in the ultimately...
Or a post office, village post office.
Post office could do it. The customer service center. These.
It's very important what you're saying, because this is the biggest question in people's minds, where bank accounts are not there. If 50% of India, rural India, is unbanked, or maybe 60.
Let me answer that. That's very important. See, remember, we don't have to have everybody having a bank account. What we need is whoever is a beneficiary should be able to get a bank account. Yeah. We are going to proactively make sure that they will have an Aadhaar number. Now, actually, when Aadhaar is totally universalized, they'll have it anyway. But in order to operationalize this scheme, basically, district collectors will make sure that people who are listed will actually have an Aadhaar number. If they don't have it, you can have camps where the Aadhaar representative comes, you take their biometrics, they get an Aadhaar number. Okay. Now, the UIDA people are saying that they will fast track the delivery of Aadhaar number in these cases. I mean, simply because there are many cases where people have put in an ID, put in an application, the card takes a long time to come. Okay? The Reserve Bank separately has made a very important decision. That is, if you have an Aadhaar number, then you will have a bank account opened. I mean, banks would be violating an RBI direction.
That guideline
if they don't open
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
So what you have is, wherever you are in a village, if there's a banking correspondent there, and if you have an Aadhaar number, basically you can get your bank account open. Okay? As far as the schemes are concerned, what you will be doing is you will be putting your Aadhaar number in the digitalized beneficiary list. The money will then be transferred to all these people via what they call the Aadhaar gateway. The individual, basically the record of your Aadhaar number and whichever bank account you want to use will be with the Aadhaar gateway.
Yeah. Dr. Ahluwalia, the other question that people are asking is, by when will this whole process that you just mentioned will be fully in place? As in, when will, say, 150 million households which don't have a bank account, as you said, beneficiary among these households, when will they have access to a village grocer or post office where it will, where the banking correspondent will come and deliver this to them?
Well, the hope is that by the end of 2013, it's not the 150 million household, it's by the end of 2013, all the beneficiaries of the schemes that we are looking at. Now, for example, there may be, in the longer run, everybody should have one. But right now, the important thing is, if you're
beneficiaries of the scheme,
that can be done by the end of 2013. And what we've said
for these already cash transfer related schemes.
Yes, already cash transfer.
Not for food subsidies and fertilizer.
Not that's a separate issue.
That's separate. Okay.
Completely separate.
We'll come to that after a small break. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia, Deputy Chairman, Planning Commission, on a whole range of issues concerning cash transfer. Dr. Ahluwalia, now you were explaining how the first lot of schemes which are already being delivered in the form of cash being made more or less being sought to be made foolproof, delivered much more efficiently. There are other doubts which people have about the next stage. Will this also encompass other welfare programs being delivered either through the centrally sponsored schemes like Manrega, health schemes, and say fertilizer subsidies and food subsidies? Doubt in people's mind as to they will all be replaced with a new system, or the ones which are working well will be allowed to continue. These are some of the confusions.
No, I think it's very important. Very important.
Like in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, PDS is working very well.
First, let me say that we started off with 40 districts and some 23 schemes or so. probably by the end of March, okay, in all these 40 districts, all these schemes will be made fully operational. The next step obviously will be to do it in all the districts, and we hope that by the end of the year that's possible. Okay, so that's a big task.
40 districts.
No, 40 districts should be complete by the end of March.
Okay.
And then we need to extend that in the rest of the country.
Districts.
Yeah. Now, the most important thing is that the thing should work for the 40 districts in the 23 states.
So you have to demonstrate success there.
Yes.
In order that people have confidence
Absolutely.
in the new method of delivery.
You must realize that the power of the technology is such that, if you're opening a health clinic, right, and you open 35 health clinics in 20 districts, you can't scale that up to the rest of the country because there are hundreds of complications. Here, if for these 23 schemes in 40 districts, and I think it's about 15 states or something like that, if this works, scaling up to the whole country is simply not a problem. Okay? It's simply not a problem because it boils down to saying...
For these 23 schemes.
For these 23 schemes. And of course, if there are other schemes, when you do it, it becomes a different matter. But the point is, if the system works for one scheme in one district, all you need is for every scheme in each district a digitalized list. Now remember, this scaling up phenomenon using this method is actually a technological feat. Because as I said, you may have a system where somebody's opened 10 health clinics and they're doing very well. To scale that up for the whole country in 1 year is just not possible. It would take God knows what. So here, let's get it working, and then all the doubts that people have. Doubts are, will you have an UID number? Will the micro ATM work? Will there be a banking correspondent?
Do people have to go to banks?
All of that will get resolved. Now, I would not, by the way, say that any scheme will be 100% foolproof. Yeah. There will be the odd person.
2% error.
I'll give you a simple example that if you have a thumb impression and you've damaged your thumb, the thing may not read it properly. Okay, but try to consider. My view is that the present system, out of 100,000 beneficiaries, my guess is that the dissatisfaction level is 35%. If you, I'm just making a guess, that if you took a whole bunch of beneficiaries and you said, how many are you satisfied? 35% will say they're not. Checks don't arrive in time. In order to collect the checks, I have to do this, that, and the other, and so on.
So you're saying in the new system, maybe 5% will say they're not.
Well, you're using the number. Actually, my guess is it'll be much less than 5. But look at the implication. If it is 5, what it means is that if you have 100,000 beneficiaries in the present system, 35,000 of them are unhappy. In the new system, 5,000 will be unhappy. Because that's 5% of 100,000. So there's a huge change.
This to me sounds very logical. But tell me, you had a meeting recently, National Development Council, with all the chief ministers were here. What is the response of chief ministers in general? Because they are the people who are going to implement many of these schemes.
But let me put it this way. The hesitation that people have relate to the substitution of physical commodities provided cheap with the cash transfer. Okay? And there are different...
Does the chief ministers also have this sentiment, is it?
Well, they differ because you see, if you ask the Delhi chief minister, Sheila ji, or you ask the Bihar chief minister, Nitish ji, he's in favor of it.
Okay.
But if you ask Mr. Raman Singh of Chhattisgarh, he feels that his system is working fine and don't change it.
What about Akhilesh Yadav? Like UP is very big.
I don't recall whether Akhilesh ji expressed a view. These
least
people
did not oppose it in a big way, is it?
I don't think there was large-scale opposition at all.
UP is an important state, yeah.
Well, every state we think is important, but my view on this is that no state should be forced to change. That's my view. And I think we should have a system where states are the ones that should choose. Do they want to do it this way or do they want to do it the other way? Now, I want to... let me explain.
Okay.
There is a fear that, states might fear that, if cash is being transferred, then their role disappears. Okay? It looks like you're getting a benefit only from the center. But that's not what is intended. See, it is not intended to get rid of fair price shops. Okay? The idea is there will be a fair price shop, That shop will have food grains which we normally get through the procurement system. Only thing is those food grains will be priced at a sort of a cost-based price or a market-related price. So instead of paying whatever it is, 3-4 rupees for a kg of wheat or rice, in many states they subsidize it even further. You might be charged the full. The price would be the normal price, which could be anything between 12 and 14 rupees, let's say. But the difference is that you, as an individual, would have some kind of an electronic credit system in your bank account, which could be used for the purchase of these commodities. So you go into the shop and you have an entitlement where a certain subsidy is being credited to you, and you can go into the shop.
But you pay the market price.
Well, you credit the market price, but what you pay in cash is the subsidized price.
Okay.
Now, what does this do? First point is that as far as the individual is concerned, he's empowered as soon as the money comes.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as the shop is concerned, they have to be sure that the goods are there.
Okay.
Many people have a choice between going to one shop and another shop.
So they could either go to the fair price or to another shop.
Or to one of two fair price shops. You should remember at the moment.
So you're saying that a dual system will operate, is it? Some sort of...
Well, no, it'll introduce competition. Look, today what happens is that
fair
it's
price
the
shop
fair
will
price
compete
shop.
with the other shops in some sense.
And with other fair price shops.
Other fair price
because today what is happening is you have one fair price shop for 500 households. Now there are lots of villages where you have 1,000 households, and they will have two fair price shops. So you have a choice. You can go to one fair price shop or the other. Certainly in urban areas, everybody will have that choice. Okay. Now this creates competition, because today what is happening is a fair price shop is getting grain at a very, very cheap rate. Okay. If the shop owner can divert the grain and sell into open market, he has no incentive to get somebody to buy that grain from him. In fact, he's quite happy if nobody comes, because he can just sell it off. This way around, the grain will come not at a subsidized price as far as he's concerned, but at a normal price. But he'll know that these customers have been credited with the amount. So he'll be telling them, the grain's here, please come. Whereas today, what is happening is even after the grain has come, the fellow denies that the grain has come.
Sure.
Now, many civil society activists say, no, we should police the shops, keep watch over them, make sure that they don't die. But that's not practical. Whereas this way, you would actually be empowering the person you want to help.
Yeah. We'll take a small break here. Please don't go away and stay with us. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Dr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia on some of the very tricky aspects of the cash transfer scheme, which has generated so much debate. Dr. Ahluwalia, you explained in detail how this whole thing would work in the public distribution, food distribution space.
By the way, it was a hypothetical explanation because, as you pointed out, government has not decided to do this.
I know, yeah.
But there are experiments going on, and in my view, we should do it.
It could come at the second stage or third stage.
Well, after all these doubts about the system and how it works have been fully resolved.
Okay, so the first task, as it were, is to demonstrate the success in these 23 schemes, 44 districts, and then probably look at the other schemes, right?
Absolutely.
Now tell me, why some of the biggest leakages which is recorded in government documents happen in, say, kerosene distribution, for instance.
Yeah.
Hugely, kerosene mafia, openly we know they mix kerosene with diesel. There's a lot of problems for delivery of fertilizer subsidy where the company gets the subsidy and not the farmer directly. Aren't these fertilizer, I feel, 90,000 crore a year, isn't it a perfect target for cash transfer? Why should companies receive the subsidy and not the farmers directly?
Again, let me give you my personal view. My personal view is it is absolutely vital to change, and there will be two reasons for that change. One is, in the case of fertilizer at the present moment, there's an issue price, and then there's a price that we have to pay the companies. And if we don't change the issue price, the price paid to the companies keeps going up as their costs go up, and the subsidy keeps widening. I think we should switch to a system where there's a subsidy per unit of fertilizer. And that subsidy should be the same for different types of fertilizer. After that, the fertilizer price should be freed. And farmers will know that they're getting a subsidy, can buy this fertilizer, buy that fertilizer. Now, the present situation is chemical fertilizer is subsidized. Organic fertilizer is not subsidized.
Yeah.
Now, as a result...
That's a distortion by itself.
Huge distortion. And people are actually being encouraged to use the fertilizer which is actually not better. In fact, it's sometimes worse than organic fertilizer. Now, the problem with that, however, is that you have to make up your mind, what is the entitlement of each farmer? Because today, the farmer gets the subsidy depending on how much fertilizer he buys. Unlike kerosene and unlike LPG, where there is sort of an entitlement, here there's no entitlement. So you'd have to move to a system where you would basically say that each farmer, let's say, if you calibrate it around a certain acreage, sort of average, the average farmer, okay?
I guess 80% of farmers are below 3 acres per head?
Yes, something like that. So, all right, you can calibrate it at 3 acres. So 80% of the farmers get covered. And for that 80%, you work out what is an optimum fertilizer requirement, and you decide what's going to be the subsidy, and you give them an entitlement. Other farmers pay the market price for the fertilizer. That will be the consequence. Now, they will obviously be very unhappy, because it's not possible to have a cash transfer which depends farmer by farmer.
Yeah, sure.
It's also not easy to do a cash transfer which depends on the size of landholding, because records are very odd, and some people are owning the land and some people are operating the land, so that's very difficult. But definitely, in my view, we should move away from the present fertilizer subsidy system. But you know, that's different from the cash issue. There are too many distortions in the fertilizer subsidy the way it stands, and we need to change that anyway. I think what is relevant for us is really the kerosene, LPG area, and in the longer run also food distribution.
Food distribution.
One of the things, by the way, about food distribution is, for example, at the moment, we subsidize rice and wheat. We don't subsidize coarse grains.
Yeah.
Now, you know, if you gave a subsidy to an individual, it's quite possible that the person concerned would prefer to use a subsidy for food grains. They may also prefer to use a subsidy for dal. They may prefer to use a subsidy for edible oils. And
there's a choice. You could spread your subsidies based on
And I think that the fact that we, many people fear...
In fact, this is one of the weaknesses of the Food Securities Act also, because it doesn't address this choice, nutrition choice issue.
Well, the act is still to be, the Food Security Act is about food grains. It does say that we should progressively bring these in. See, the great advantage in my view...
So there's a choice. There would be a choice.
It separates the issue of the subsidy from the issue of where you spend the subsidy, and it separates that also from procurement. I mean, for example, if you're an authorized shop which can take a food credit, government could well say that the food credit can be used for wheat, rice, dal, edible oils, eggs. Okay? Sure. And some of these are being provided by the government at a fixed price. Others, the person concerned could be buying from the local market. Now, there will be a certain fear that if people actually switch from food grain to other crops, we may end up buying a lot more of wheat and rice than is actually needed through the PDS. But you know, if we are doing that, we should just sell that in the open market.
Sure.
So I think this notion that we must give only subsidized grain through the PDS in order to be able to manage MSP, a minimum support price, this is wrong. I want to emphasize, we should not change the minimum support price system. That must remain. Farmers must remain assured that whatever the minimum support price...
If anything, it should be probably be extended to other...
Yes, I think that's fair,
like
because you know, in Punjab, for example, one of the reasons why Punjab grows a lot of rice...
Extended to coarse grains also.
Well, I don't know, maize, if you want to call that, yeah. I mean, one area into which Punjab could very easily switch is maize. But people are not very satisfied that the minimum support price operation for maize is working as well. So the reason why it works for wheat and rice is it has an automatic offtake through the PDS, and whatever subsidy is borne by the government. And as a result, FCI has absolutely no incentive to minimize any cost whatsoever. I think we'll get away from that.
Another very interesting suggestion which came I read an article in the Hindu newspaper by an economist who worked with Seva. He says that to allay the fears expressed by the civil society representative, why don't you do a cash top-up to real beneficiaries, whether it's kerosene, food, in commodities, and then gradually make it cash, and so that it happens it is soft landed. It happens in a very gradual fashion.
Well,
do you think that
let
is
me put
workable?
it, I am in favor of experimenting to move towards a cash transfer, because I'm firmly of the view that it will be hugely beneficial, it will be cost effective, it will actually empower people. I mean, I take the view that when you give people cash, actually you empower them more than when you give them cheap food grain. Okay. Secondly, you would be giving it to the woman in the household. So I think the economic status of women in a poor income area would increase if the women are actually getting a cash transfer than if they're simply collecting the family rations. I do not believe that women will misuse this money, waste it, spend it on drink. It's unfortunate that some of the men might do that. That's why I think it should go to the women in the household. And frankly, we should look around the world. I mean, many people have this kind of cash transfer, food subsidy type of program. Almost none of them try to run a physical delivery system. Okay. So we need to learn from what other countries are doing also.
Sure. Thanks a lot for talking to us, Dr. Ahluwalia. It was great talking to you. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back soon. Thanks for watching.